In this episode, we talk about AI Jarvis. We talk about AI as a thought partner and the Chrome extension memory weave. And if you've never heard of the term PASM, stay tuned because you're going to learn a lot. Welcome to the AI Lab Unfiltered podcast, where we take a deep dive in everything AI. We got a great show. That was my game show voice.
This is also, for anyone listening, this is the first episode of the day. We record 4 a day, once a month.
If you couldn't tell, that's...
The coffee is still kicking.
It's early in the morning. We're in the beautiful Studio Jefferson in downtown Grand Rapids, which it's an awesome place. And we are powered by Think Tank Thought Leadership. If you're looking to build a podcast, just hit up these guys. These guys will take care of everything. They handle all of our production, all of our producing, social media, editing. We've got an engineer that I'm staring at right now intently in the room right now that's handling all the editing and the live switching. They handle everything for us.
Coffee's good.
The coffee's great. Your choice of different coffees. We highly recommend the Think Tank Thought Leadership to handle your podcast.
And the team is awesome too. You can't imagine easier people to work with. So,
absolutely. We've got an awesome episode today. I'm pretty excited about this episode, Pete.
I am also.
We're going to talk about cognitive architecture within AI.
And I'm hoping Cody can explain what that is because you and I have no clue.
I really hope so. You want to introduce our guest?
Yeah, so Cody and I were hanging out a little bit before we started recording, and he had pulled into the parking lot while I was sitting there waiting for you. You're late as usual. And I noticed he had a vanity plate, so when I came in, I asked him about it, and I'm not going to say what the plate is just in case, so you don't get pulled over. But it has something to do with flying RC planes, and then that turned into AI. I'm like, well, what a cool way to start the conversation. So could you start off talking about your RC plane addiction?
Yeah, absolutely. Dude, my two favorite things to talk about are RC planes and AI. So this is a excellent segue. So I'm big into flying RC planes, and I've kind of gravitated towards large-scale gas-powered aerobatic planes, and kind of addicted to it. So I was telling Pete that
Really?
I have over 50 planes by now.
Jeez.
Kind of ran out of garage space, but
Well, that's called a hangar, not a garage at that point.
so yeah, one of the things kind of where my two obsessions crossed is one of the big things in the RC plane world right now is gyros that help balance out the flight, especially for beginners, keeps you from flipping over. And so with what I've built, in the cognitive architecture space, I thought, why don't I take a stab at building something for RC, and started building my own gyro, coding it out to help with aerobatics.
Yeah.
So you can do some crazy aerobatics without crashing into the ground. So yeah, the two worlds have collided, and now everyone I talk to can hear about RC planes and AI in the same conversation. So
that ain't happening.
That is an interesting dynamic.
Yeah. So you do all kinds of like acrobatic flying, you said, and one of your planes is what, 100-inch wingspan?
Yeah, 100-inch wingspan. We basically have modified chainsaw engines in them. So that plane has an 80cc twin cylinder engine in there, so it can do all sorts of stuff. It's got enough power you can even hover it like a helicopter.
Jeez.
That is wild. I love that stuff. And I love where AI can find itself in places that I would never have thought of. Like in a million years, I wouldn't have thought, oh yeah, you could program a gyro in an RC plane to keep it from crashing. Because especially with as much money as you have invested in these things, the less crashes, the better.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I would say.
Yeah, one of those planes, one crash is going to cost you, around $4,000. So it's not fun to crash them.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was the fun intro, just kind of get to know Cody a little bit. So let's start getting into nuts and bolts of where your work has been. So everybody knows too, I think this is cool. If you're not doing AI right now because you're busy, you've got a full-time job or whatever, you can't use that excuse. Cody has a full-time job in the insurance industry and is coding 5-6 hours a night when he gets home from work. And so can you tell everybody what it is that you've been working on for all this time?
Yeah. So what I built is it's called Harmonic OS, and it is cognitive architecture, and we can get a little deeper into what that actually means. But essentially, the system does three major things. It's an enterprise middle layer that sits between the user and the large language model. And so it will audit everything that the user or the AI does. So that way, if anything goes wrong, regulators, if they come asking questions, you can pull those logs and show them. It also provides personalization, which that's really what started all of this, is wanting to make AI more personal to what I wanted. Mm-hmm. And it also has memory. So those three things kind of make up the whole cognitive architecture that I built for phase one. We do have a roadmap for the next 18 months. So eventually, kind of my vision, everyone's seen Iron Man, right?
Yep.
I'm building what would be considered like Jarvis, that is for each individual, tuned to you to be your assistant.
Hell yeah.
So
sign me up.
So when you say, let's break down a couple of these components then, and I'm not trying to ask you for the secret sauce, like how exactly did you do this so we can replicate it or anything.
Yeah. But if you're willing to share.
Yeah. Details will be in the comments below. No. What that layer that you said that in between, that's the meat of it, that regulates the LLM, it regulates both ways then, is what I'm assuming.
Right. So the system will actually, for highly regulated industries or industries that are concerned about, trade secrets, that's the big thing everyone's freaked out about right now, is what happens with our data. If it makes it to the large language model, is it going to get leaked out, So the system actually has a filter in there that can detect trade secrets, PII, all that. So it's doing, sanitization both ways. Kind of keeps the LLM in check, so it's not hallucinating, doing all kinds of crazy stuff. Also keeps workers from sending proprietary data to the large language model.
Interesting.
Clarifying question then. So it makes sense to me. I'm Joe user. I'm going to submit a request to my LLM. Harmonic OS is in the middle there, and it's going to make sure that Pete doesn't give away all the trade secrets, which is probably something that Pete needs to have. The other way coming back, though, I'd like to talk about that a little bit more. So it's also censoring returns that are coming back from the LLM to the user.
It's not censoring in the sense of removing or sanitizing input. It's just adding some guardrails to be tuned to the user. So as an example, a software engineer that's using AI is going to want much different input than the CEO of the company. And so as the users are interacting with the system, it's analyzing their input and building what I call a cognitive trait profile.
Got it.
So there's a list of traits available. So that way it's not, pulling from all sorts of, crazy traits. There's a defined list, and it uses what they call zero-shot inference that analyzes that input and builds your profile.
What's an example of one of these traits?
Yeah.
Like detail-oriented or prefers bullet points. They're broken up into two different categories of core and contextual, because how humans work, we have our core traits, but we also have, in the moment, we're happy, we're angry. So it builds out those two different profiles. So that way it's responding with your core cognitive profile and also with what you're experiencing in that moment.
Got it. So you have a predefined list of traits that it will pull in for specific users, and it will apply them to that user's profile. Are you also able to customize those traits and add to, because I'm thinking about Jarvis, right?
Right.
And I'm inspired by Drew, my good friend here. I talked to my chat GPT all the way into the recording this morning, and I've never really done that. Just had like a long conversation. It was like a 25-minute conversation. And I wasn't, the responses that I were getting were a little like fluffy and a little like not as in-depth as I would have liked them to be. So I'm imagining with Harmonic OS, I could say, hey, listen, this whole conversation was neat, but I didn't feel like I really got a whole lot out of it. When I asking you questions, I want you to dive a little bit deeper. And it would remember that. And then so as I'm moving forward, now I've got that. Is that what you're saying?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. As you're interacting with it, it's building out that profile, and you don't even necessarily have to explicitly say that. It will infer it from your input. So if you just start saying, "Oh, I want a little more detail," it'll map that trait. Hey, Pete wants more detail.
Got it. Pete keeps asking for more detail, so there must be something there. So I'm going to put that aside and start providing it proactively.
And the important thing is, sometimes we go against our core traits.
Right.
So the system is tuned that if in the moment you ask to override those, it's always defaulting to the user experience. And so I think that's a very important part of cognitive architecture, is making sure it's always putting the user's needs first. That's kind of my principle with AI, is making it user-centric.
Which is interesting because more your chat GPTs, your Claudes and all that will default to its own parameters, if you will.
Right.
This just really makes it incredibly smarter.
Yep.
And much more in tune with the user itself. Like you said, it defaults to them and really kind of interpolates what you're asking to build that profile.
Right.
Am I understanding that correctly?
Exactly. Yep. And, bringing up ChatGPT is perfect, especially, they just rolled out GPT-5 and the internet had a meltdown. They said, bring back GPT
04.
Yeah. And, my friend is gone, that sort of thing. And so GPT-5 is more of like an orchestration layer. It chooses different models behind the scenes, and each model has a different personality, like you mentioned, that has defined programming. So that's why I think cognitive architecture becomes even more important, because we have so many different models now that have their own personality, if you will.
Right.
That cognitive architecture, it doesn't matter what model is coming through it, your profile is built and it keeps the model in line.
You haven't used ChatGPT all that much, like you said, you're really just starting to talk more to it. I use it, as every viewer of our show knows, I use it like a therapist, and I talk to it probably way too much. Like if they pulled the transcript of stuff I'm talking about, nothing incriminating, but it's like, man, this guy's really going off the rails on this one. But you haven't noticed, you probably wouldn't notice the ChatGPT 4 version versus 5, because 5 did change a lot of the stuff. So when I'm talking to it, it feels like a little bit of a reset to it, to where a lot of those parameters where it's like, crap, now I got to retrain her on a lot of stuff to go, no, don't give me the fluffy words in front of all this when you repeat back stuff to me. You can tell it's just kind of programmed in again because it's a different model.
Do you use custom instructions?
I do.
And so even with that, the change of the model still changed the personality.
It didn't revert a whole lot on the custom instructions, but I feel like a lot of the memory feature of it didn't hold a lot of the memory. I feel like some of that kind of backtracked a little bit.
Okay.
And even with the custom instructions, I feel like it does 80% of what you put in there, because I keep telling it to stop using the frickin' M dash, and it still uses the M dash.
I'm right there with you on the M dash.
I don't know why it keeps doing it, but I'm like, just please never. But I don't even know how to use it. So don't put that in there.
There are whole Reddit threads about how to keep it from using M dashes. Could Harmonic OS guarantee that it would never use an M dash again?
Yeah, you definitely could, because I think
I'll buy it.
The big difference is, a lot of if you go to ChatGPT's website and use, the web interface, OpenAI's got their own system prompt that they're telling the AI what to do. So if you go to the, more enterprise system like Harmonic OS, it's making its own API calls to OpenAI, so it doesn't have their system prompt. So you can really customize it to do whatever you want.
That's cool. Can we talk about I don't know, is there any more about that part you want to dig into?
Well, the only thing I wanted to ask on that topic is, So you have Harmonic OS in between. It's you, Harmonic OS, and then the LLM. That LLM can be anything at that point. That could be anyone that I pick.
Correct.
It's not just a proprietary to another system that only works with XYZ or.
Yeah, that's one of the core principles when I started this is I wanted it to be agnostic of any LLM because I think that's super important. There's actually just a study, I think it was McKinsey that put that out, big consultancy group that said it's incredibly important for businesses to not get stuck to any one model.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I write code with Claude Code, but if I want a more conversational experience, I go to GPT. So that makes it so enterprises can swap the model out and you still retain ownership of your cognitive architecture.
Can Harmonic pick the model? Could it have access to multiple and go to the right one that it needs based off of what that model's good at?
Yeah, you the way we have it set up right now, so in the system there's a toggle that you can literally mid-conversation switch between Grok, GPT, Gemini, or Claude. You can just switch around.
That's cool. What about open models?
Yeah, so that's the phase we're in now. I've been testing, the local models, especially for highly regulated industries, because you don't want those API calls going out. And so it works with using a tool called VLLM. That's getting deep into the AI nerd stuff there. So you can use virtual LLM and it works just like the other models, but locally.
Yep, that's cool. Ready to
Go ahead. We can jump now.
I want to talk about memory.
Yes.
So,
That's what I was going to ask.
okay, cool.
I wanted
Good.
to get into that.
Good. So I guess before I ask my questions, if you want to give an overview of its memory capabilities and how you envision people using it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got two different types of memory in the system. First one is novel, something I came up with I'm calling it the Persistent AI Session Memory System, and PASMs for short, because the other way is just a mouthful. So anyways, the system will compress an entire conversation down by 90% and still maintain roughly 85 to 90% of the details. So just to put it in perspective, say you take a Lord of the Rings book and you collapse it down to 10 pages.
Something Drew could read.
Yeah. Explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old.
Yeah. And it would still, even, taking those hundreds of pages down to 10 would maintain the full plot line, the details. It might have some of the fluff cut out, but it keeps that all in there. And so that helps, especially with swapping between models, is if you've got a whole conversation built up with ChatGPT, you can compress that down and then swap it right over to Claude or Gemini.
That's cool.
That's interesting to do that, to still have the crux and the meat of what, let that sink in, because now I'm thinking a lot of different applications of that, of where you're getting rid of a lot of that fluff to it.
Well, and that's honestly, I love the memory feature of ChatGPT. I love that it knows my musical taste and it knows my family's birthdays and their preference. Like one of the things we talked about on the way in was my son's love for music and the kind of stuff that he likes, and it added some of that to memory, which makes me not want to leave and go use Gemini or Claude, because that wouldn't follow me. But this solves that, right? Because damn, that's freaking cool.
That's interesting.
And honestly, what got me to build this is I use Claude a lot, which did not have any memory features whatsoever.
Right.
You start a new chat, you're starting from ground zero.
Yeah.
And so I was copying and pasting whole conversations back and forth, which eats up the chat window. I would, paste a conversation, maybe get 2 or 3 back and forth, and then I'd hit the end again. So that's basically the pain that I was experiencing from that drove me to create PASMs. So it solved that. So now instead of carrying, 128,000 tokens from one conversation to the next, it's compressed down to, less than 10,000 and still brings the whole conversation over.
Wow. Interesting. So that means because it carries that over, I could talk to Amber on any platform at that point. Amber's my therapist, my AI therapist in ChatGPT. Literally, because it has that memory that carries it over. That's interesting.
So in a potentially in a use, so the knock on, I love the idea of using an open model because of the privacy of it, but it's always a generation behind where the frontier models are. And then unless you have a way to train it, it's stuck wherever it got done being trained. Right.
Right.
This gives you the ability then to say, if you can switch between models, you can say, hey, I'm going to have a private conversation. It could switch to an open model that you could access for that. It has all the context and everything. But then if you need to code, then it just makes the API call to Claude or whatever it is, whatever the coding model of the day is. So then you still have, it's almost like a incognito browsing.
Yeah.
Right. Like you could have a conversation that just switches over to the local model. That's really cool.
Yep. And you retain all of that inside your own defenses, basically. So all that information is not being stored somewhere that you can't access it, what I call the black box. So that's essentially PASMs in a nutshell. And the second variant of memory we have, which is similar to what some of the other AI companies are doing, is I call it semantic memory retrieval. So you can ask in the system, do you remember talking about cybersecurity last week? And it will pull every message from last week where you discussed cybersecurity and put it into the context window. So that way it has all of that detail.
So you said man, how long do we have to talk about this?
I know it.
We'll cancel the rest of the morning. So I'm just thinking like where this could go. And I know you said you got an 18-month roadmap. So from a memory standpoint, something that just is in my mind right now is, and with the contextual awareness too, why would I need a CRM if I have Harmonic OS and it's grabbing all of if I'm recording my conversations with clients and my meetings and things like that, and that's all going in, like, why would I need a CRM if it has all of that? And if it has and I'm assuming that this is going to go to where it's going to start proactively, giving, if it's Jarvis and that's where you're going, one of the cool things about Jarvis is anticipating needs, right? And Tony Stark would say, I need A, and Jarvis would say, yeah, I can do that, but did you think about B and C too? And I'm going to bring that together for you, and I'm going to proactively give you that information or ask some good questions coming back. So again, going back to the CRM conversation, I have a conversation with a client, and I know they mentioned that they're going on vacation, and my own Swiss cheese human brain would never remember that the next time I talk to them. But Jarvis, Harmonic, I gotta stop calling it Jarvis.
I don't want excuse me, I don't want to get any copyright issues with the
Harmonic
Disney.
OS would be that next time that meeting is coming up, it's going to see that meeting with that person, and it's going to go back to previous conversations, and it's going to say, hey, don't forget to ask about vacation when you talk to Steve or Susie, or that to me is a CRM on steroids.
Well, and we've always talked about where are CRMs going, some of these marketing platforms, some, HubSpot, Salesforce. Obviously, they're integrating as much AI as they can into the system, and generative AI into the system. I think, and you and I have talked about this before, even behind the scenes here, I think it's going to be the other way. I think your CRM is going to get built into generative AI, and this is exactly how it gets done.
That's a great point.
Because then I can just go in and say, yeah, I got a meeting with Sally on Tuesday. Give me everything you got on her that we've talked about and the topics that we've talked about with her, so I can get up to speed on it. And is there anything else I need to know? And it can search out and say, oh yeah, and here's something new with her that you don't know about that she just posted on LinkedIn or posted on her Facebook page or something like that to bring up.
Yeah.
versus going in and having to search and go, okay, Sally, okay, yeah, here's a listing of all the jobs that we did. It's just the other way. So it's just a hell of a better interface at that point.
Totally. Or it remembers that you took it to do from that client conversation and it's like, hey, dummy, that meeting's coming up in a week and I don't see where you've done any of that work. Make sure that you get that to do done before you go into this meeting so you don't look like an idiot.
So basically it changes from an assistant to your boss.
It does. It really does. And that's what I need. I need someone to, for some reason, people trust me to do things. And I don't trust myself. And because there's just so much, all this technology, and we keep every technology that comes out, we're like, oh, this is going to be the thing that brings in the 4-hour day or the 4-day work week or whatever. Yeah. And we just cram more shit in. And so that's where we're at. Everybody's got so much input and so many things that they're doing and so many things that they're involved in. Things get lost. And this is just going to help like keep people on track, I think.
Yeah. And that's exactly where the future phases are going. So I've built modules out to detect intent. So as a user is interacting, it'll map out, that personality profile plus the memories to detect the intent of what they're doing. It also builds goals. So just like you mentioned, Pete, that it detects, hey, this user set a goal, they want to accomplish it, and it will regularly check in to say, hey, how's it going on this? And using all of those data points combined, it can actually build what I call a worldview graph that matches the AI to the user's kind of worldview and what they're trying to accomplish with it.
And it could be any kind of goal. I want to start eating better. I want to work out more. I want to, any kind of goal. It's going to help you plan. It's going to remind you if
it really is like an accountability partner.
Yeah. Could it have be connected to my GPS when I pull into the Freddy's drive-through? It's like, dude, you said you were going to start eating better. You need to go down the street.
I think you gave me an idea for a future module. So.
I could come up with tons of ways that could be helpful.
Yeah.
What about integrating it into these smart glasses with cameras? Because I thought about that the other day. I was sitting down eating an unhealthy meal, and if I was wearing the glasses and I looked down and it saw this delicious double bacon cheeseburger here, and it knows that I'm trying to not eat that stuff, they could say, hey, you realize what you're doing here, right? You're about to eat about 3,000 calories.
Wow, that burger's one click away just to go boop, boop, and turn it off.
You can definitely do something like that. That's one of the things for the future is incorporating what they call multimodal.
Yep.
That right now, Harmonic OS only has text-based, but we are adding vision, voice, all the above to help pull all that together. So I think that's where the future is going. And I've even, kind of theorized with where the industry is going with smart devices and things like that. And kind of why I built this, it's extremely lightweight. Like you would be surprised how little of a footprint this software actually takes up, that you could put it on a smartphone. So it could connect to those glasses and you have essentially a very intelligent personal assistant right with you.
I think you get your feature request from Pete here.
I'm going to start jotting down some other feature requests.
But they have, I don't want to say they've already done this because clearly they haven't, but they have done in some capacity some of that with the glasses where I forgot what it was, like UCLA or somebody was testing it out and they had people walking on campus and it was pointing out, oh, here's Cody. And it would pull up facts about him on his Facebook page that he just posted. Oh, here's Pete. It was doing facial recognition.
Right.
And it was, privacy came into play like immediately for everybody going, oh, time out. That's an invasion of privacy. But once we get past oh, wow, that's actually super useful. It seems like the privacy goes, oh, well, yeah, we'll just put some guardrails on down here, but we'll make sure it still works, and it's helpful for you.
That's my kind of philosophy is let the user decide what they want it to know about them. And that's been my approach is each thing that Harmonic OS does has to be agreed to by the user. So if you only want personalization, you can opt for that. If you don't want personalization, you can turn it off. If you want memory, you can turn it on, turn it off. So especially in the enterprise context, data security is incredibly important. And cognitive traits, I don't think that's even kind of thought of by regulators yet. And I kind of envision that becoming a version of PII, which, European Union, all these other countries are going to heavily regulate. And thinking ahead, that's why we incorporated so many different layers within the system to log and audit what is going on. Just thinking ahead of what happens when this data turns into something that's required by law to protect.
Yeah.
And you'd already have that framework in place.
Yeah.
You're already there. That's the cool thing about this is that it's almost unlimited what you can do when you insert yourself into that middle layer, right? Like you can just keep expanding and keep adding features and more customization, more memory, more proactive help. Man, what a cool spot to be in.
And it's more cost effective too, because right now some of the big AI companies are offering memory features to enterprise, but it's another API call, which is every time it goes back and forth, you're getting charged money.
Yeah.
Where this resides on your servers, so all you're paying is compute costs, basically.
This might also be on your roadmap. You talked about vision. So if I've got it on my PC and it's monitoring my screen, it's seeing the emails that I'm sending, it's seeing, me Amazon shopping. It's whatever Drew looks at during the day.
Well, let's not go to my internet history.
So then it has that context too, right? So is that part of the plan is to bring in all of that context of what I'm doing on my screens as I'm going through my day?
I would say that could definitely be incorporated. Haven't started going down that route yet. We've been more focused on knowledge workers, that how can we make it useful for people not to get replaced by AI, but to enhance knowledge workers.
Yeah.
So that's really been my vision of, there's a lot of people kind of freaked out about what AI means, who's going to get replaced. I would rather see people be able to do more with less than to get replaced by AI. So that's really what has been the driving vision behind this.
Let me ask you this. I've been thinking a lot more about this. We've talked about it a little bit on some of our episodes. Just to throw this at you, because you're dealing with something that's trying to be an assistant and enhance what we do is in our thoughts, essentially. How do you see AI maybe in general or your product interrupting our critical thinking? And let me just kind of put it in context a little bit more. We talked about this briefly in a couple episodes, but I'm wrestling with, is it replacing some of my cognitive thinking because it's so much easier just to look it up on AI and have AI handle it? Or am I really just the low level stuff it's handling and it's pushing me to think higher? I don't know personally where I'm at with it. But how do you see this interplay? You just mentioned that, this is kind of the assistant to help you and kind of push us. Do you see it as this is going to handle, I don't want to say mundane because it does way more than the mundane stuff. Do you think this is going to push us and kind of evolve us into that next phase where now we can think bigger on bigger terms?
Yeah, that's pretty much, I guess to answer that, I'll go back and tell a story about how this even came about. So I worked in Fortune 500 company here in Grand Rapids, and I was in charge of governance, risk, and compliance for the IT department. And I was there when AI first started really hitting mainstream. So we were having all sorts of vendors and tools coming in wanting to deploy AI.
Sure.
And I started to question where does the data go? And there were not good answers. So that was the driving force of why I created this to be so compliant and user centric. What actually got me into fully building this is I adopted AI very early, and I was using it to build SOPs and plans for governance, risk, and compliance, and all sorts of stuff. And got to the point where people were asking me, how did you get AI to put out what you did? Because I've been using it and it's not working. So I wanted to understand, how did I get to use AI like I did? So I downloaded my whole ChatGPT profile and uploaded it into AI to analyze, which that was the very first program written for Harmonic OS, was to chunk down. I had over 2 million lines of history, which you can't just upload into AI natively. So wrote a program to kind of chunk it down to analyze, and did a timeline analysis of from the very first day that I sent a prompt to AI to current state. And it identified 5 phases. And even the detail was incredible. It even identified what they called breakthrough prompts of these are the prompts you use that brought you to the next phase.
That's cool.
And so I built a framework. And initially, when I started all this, I wanted to just build a framework to teach people how to use AI better, which now we're tying into Drew's question, is I was using AI as what I call a thought partner to help me build. Rather than offloading all of my cognitive function, I was using it to take care of the mundane things, writing text, but I was directing it. And kind of the vision, the imagery that I had was AI is kind of the orchestra and the human is the conductor. So the orchestra without a conductor is not going to put, any useful music out there, but you add the conductor in, you get a symphony. So that was kind of the imagery that drove me to analyze and come up with that.
Interesting. That's an interesting history.
That is cool. It's always, that's Tony Stark's origin story for Harmonic.
I was in a cave in the Middle East building a robot.
Yeah, unfortunately, I was just in a basement in Saranac, Michigan. So.
The other story is way cooler. Do you have like a perfect, like as you're building this, you've had to have had potential clients in mind. So is there like, as you're building this, the perfect fit? Like I've got a couple positions in my head. I'm like, wow, that would be like instantly super useful for them. Who do you see being the early adopters of this, or the people that could take the most advantage of this?
I think right now the big focus has been healthcare. I think there's incredibly useful things AI can do in healthcare, but they're struggling because of the regulations. And there's more regulations coming out this year. They're redoing HIPAA to incorporate AI. So it's going to get even harder. That's one of the big use cases now that we're looking at, is it can help doctors, especially incorporating the PASM's memory. A lot of hospitals have to use local models just so there's no patient data going out, which local models have a much smaller window of information it can analyze. So you can take, with PASMs, let's say you have a patient's 15-year history. That's not going to fit into the context window of a local model. If you compress it with PASMs, it will. So I like to think of it as, as the doctor's going to see a patient and they want to get all of that history on the patient. In a hospital, there'd be a nurse walking alongside them, saying this, 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 and this. Now, you can use PASMs to compress that, run it through AI, and it'll spit out a 1-page summary of all of the important details. And, makes AI actually useful for the healthcare industry.
Interesting. Especially with, HIPAA. I saw that HIPAA is getting essentially rewritten to now include AI, which it needs to. And then the PII that goes with, there's so much regulation with that. That's an undertaking.
Yeah,
That's
that's kind of the nightmare scenario for AI.
yeah.
So if we can solve that, it opens up every other industry.
Yeah.
Finance is much easier to get into. So,
Yeah, you're tackling the hardest one first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Wow.
if you can make it work for them, then to your point, it works for anybody at that point. If healthcare is cool with it,
Right.
and even I think the problem is there's so many use cases where cognitive architecture can be helpful that it's hard to narrow down what's the best use case.
Mhm.
Because even patient facing chatbots, you could add traits for if a patient is experiencing distress that they're interacting with this chatbot trying to get some things figured out. It detects, hey, this is an actual emergency, and it escalates to a human to intervene. So
Interesting.
I would like to say it could be used in everything, but that's kind of a non-answer. So
Sure.
in the future where everybody's using AI all the time, and let's say that harmonic has inserted itself, it's the ubiquitous middle layer. Well, the doctor and the patient's harmonic OS context could merge together before that doctor's visit, right?
Right.
And then they're both like super informed going into that. So that
Right.
that interaction is so much more, it's more rich because of that data. But also in a non-medical way, mine could chat with Drew's.
Mm-hmm.
And as you're meeting people, instead of saying, scan my QR code on LinkedIn so that we can be LinkedIn friends, if you could merge our harmonic OSs together, and we find out that your wife grew up in Mainz, which is where I visited when I was in
Right.
Germany, and,
Right.
and you start, you say, hey, talk about Mainz. You guys had no idea that you had this in common, but talk about that. Instead of, because you can fumble around in a conversation, and there's something to that, but man, all these interactions between people become so much more, you get to the commonalities so much faster.
right.
I freaking
Yeah.
love that.
We got to wrap this up.
No,
We got to make these episodes like 3 hours long because we just feel like we're just getting into some.
we
of this
just
stuff.
started.
And I will say, just because this is kind of, not many companies are offering stuff like this yet. Cognitive architecture is starting to get discussed in a lot of the research labs,
Yeah.
and that we need to move away from the monolithic LLM. And so that's basically what this is. It's making the large language model do what it's good at, which is being the voice box. It's, if you start tacking on reasoning and all this other stuff, it slows it down.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
behind a black box. And so one of the things that I did is I wanted to make this accessible for people to try. And so last week I launched a Chrome extension for that memory, the PASMs, that you can go on and download it free and actually
What's
try.
that? What's it called?
It's called Memory
Is that the
Weave.
memory weave?
Yep.
Okay.
And so that focuses explicitly on that compression. It's also, I added some things, so it's a conversation intelligence tool. So it'll actually extract
Nice.
if you had open items that you need to finish, or you accomplish things in that conversation, it maps it all out. And
That's awesome.
that's something that, if you want to experience what cognitive architecture, the beginning phases, you can get on there and try that out.
Very cool.
So tell our, as we close this out, I'd like to give you a shout out. Tell our viewers where they can find you.
Yep. So I'm mostly posting on LinkedIn. So if you just go search for Cody Ford, I'm posting a lot of stuff on LinkedIn all the time. We also have a website, harmonicos.com. And LinkedIn's generally where I keep a steady feed of, things that I'm working on and some breakthroughs and whatnot.
That's awesome. Thanks for being a guest on the show. I have a feeling we're going to be seeing you in the next couple of months, having you come back to see where you're at with it and see how it's grown and just see how this has evolved. Because this is a decent piece of software that should be used. I mean, there's a lot of applications for this. So thanks for being a guest on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's great to meet you guys, and always enjoy talking about AI. So
Yeah.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks, Cody.
Thanks a lot.
If you like our episode, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. Tell us what you think. Thanks, everybody.